during my other surgeries, I was actually, carried on working and supporting my team. I just wanted people to see that I was okay, because the impact, what I didn't actually realise until this started, was the impact that I had. If I was going to just let this beat me, it was going to beat them as well.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Recruitment Podcast by Recruit CRM. As all of you know by now, I'm Kate O'Neill, and I'm really excited today to bring you another really inspiring conversation with a leader in the recruitment industry and somebody that I highly value and respect. Really excited for this conversation. Today, we're exploring a really important topic, I believe, and a really impactful topic, which is the importance of not only resilience, but also a positive mindset. And we're not just talking about in recruitment with this, we're talking about in life. And I think in our fast-paced, really high-pressured world, we know in recruitment that setbacks happen. They're inevitable. You can't ignore them. What we need to work on is how we respond. And that is what defines our journey. And that is what we're in control of as well. So we have with us today, Katrina Raposo.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for inviting me onto this. So really, you have sort of touched on, I guess, the succinct version of me. But I think the word was used earlier of a veteran recruiter, but we'll just go with experienced. With my 25 years. I started recruitment simply walking into an agency back when I was 17 years old. Never looked back, always wanted that career and kept chasing and worked my way up, all my way up to the ladder to then eventually own my own agency. I know that we'll explore a little bit more with sort of our conversation about resilience and persistence, but yes, life challenges. I feel like an expert of that one just as well as I am as a recruitment expert. So that's myself.
Yeah, and you have had such an incredible journey, which we'll go into in today's episode so everyone can learn about it. But for me, resilience isn't just about somebody that can bounce back from things. It's also about sort of the learning and the growth through that adversity. And as we've highlighted, you've had a fascinating career, an incredible life journey, which, like I said, defines that resilience. So I want to dive into it because these are lessons that people can apply to recruitment. But as we've said, the life side is important as well, where we have challenges daily in recruitment, but outside of work we do as well. So these are lessons that people can put into play on both sides. So what I wanted to start with is I've talked about what resilience means to me, and I suppose other people might relate to that, but what does resilience mean to you, and how has it sort of shaped your life and your career?
Well, that's a good question. Resilience to me overall is it is always about an outcome. It's about, though, the journey to get to that outcome. So it's what do you want that to be? So I've always been a very positive person, and positivity to me is getting through the situation. So resilience to me is about that journey and those stepstones that I put in to ensure that I get the outcome that I want, whether that be through reflection, through learning, through understanding, through asking questions. But it's about not being beaten. And it's about dusting off and moving forward, but at the same time recognizing what you've actually gone through. So it's not about just dusting off and saying, oh dear, on to the next one. What have you learnt? What does it feel like? What could you do better? What are we going to do now?
Yeah, I love what you said there about not being beaten. Love that. And I think, again, what you said there about not just being like, oh, well, next thing. It's about, like you say, processing it. Because I think the danger is sometimes when you don't process what's happened to you, whatever that is, you might miss, like you say, the learnings and the growth from it. But also I think sometimes if it's been something particularly difficult, you don't actually properly deal with it, do you? And it's not something you dust off from properly.
No, exactly. It's about, I guess as well, it's about caring. Care about what that situation is. I've seen lots of people in the past, that they put up that wall and immediately they think they're being resilient by putting up a wall and moving on to the next thing. Well, that's not necessarily resilience. That to me is hiding, and sort of pushing forward, because those things will come back up and they will bite you. So, it's about dealing with what is going on and learning from it, caring about it, and then moving forward.
Yeah, and I can relate to that because I've definitely been with someone that maybe when I was younger used to do the hiding. And I
100%.
Yeah, I thought I was really resilient. Yeah, I'm great. I can deal with anything. Actually, saw those things rear their ugly heads later on. And now I'm a lot more caring with myself and actually learn to experience and process. And then, like you say, what have I learned from it? How can I grow from this sort of thing? So I think probably a lot of people could relate to that.
Yeah.
And recruitment is obviously known for its highs and lows.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the biggest challenges you've faced and how have you overcome them? Now, obviously, these challenges could be outside of work as well, but how have you overcome those, Dan?
Try and think of a work one first. It's literally, work challenges. Look, I've been in recruitment through several recessions. I've been through. I did actually have my own agency about 13 years ago that I did close, and that was a big learning curve for me. I've then, moved into several senior positions. We've gone through COVID. We've gone through that peak of recruitment that we had after COVID, and we've seen a dive now of 2024, but we're all strapping in, looking forward for 2025. So, challenges in terms of work, it could be, I've gone blank. I've gone blank.
Well, there's obviously quite a few. You've named so many challenges that you've gone through work-wise. I think what would be really interesting for people to hear as well is, coupled with all those challenges that you've dealt with amazingly in work, in your businesses that you've worked in, what are the life challenges that you've had to navigate around all of that as well?
Life challenges, when you go 25 years in recruitment, there is a lot of challenges there that come, you're growing up in the job. So, if I was speaking to myself, when I first walked into an agency, I would never believe the journey in terms of life that I would go through whilst in recruitment, and the changes in employment law and everything as well. So, I went through from getting in a relationship, having 2 children, having to come back part-time that was 35 hours a week. I've gone through childcare problems, trying to get back and forth, traveling into the city. Then we've gone through hybrid working. Then we go through health issues. So health issues being, I would say, my biggest fight and obstacle. I was diagnosed in 2022 with breast cancer. And then in July 2022, it was discovered I had the BRCA mutation gene, which meant then for the next 2 years, my life absolutely spiraled in terms of health prevention and care. So during those times, I was a director for another agency. I was supporting a team of recruitment consultants, as well as trying to support myself to get through the journey. And I actually worked throughout all my treatments. I literally only had 2 weeks off. Got a lovely little scar here, I think you can see in the light, where I did have a fainting episode after one of the surgeries and decided that my head was going to take a bit of a bashing. So that took me 2 weeks off. But during my other surgeries, I was actually, carried on working and supporting my team. More so because I just wanted people to see that I was okay, because the impact, what I didn't actually realise until this started, was the impact that I had. So if I was gonna just let this beat me, it was going to beat them as well. And that was really powerful.
I think what stood out to me there when you were talking is, obviously the resilience with yourself, not wanting to let things beat you, but as well your concern and care for other people, especially when you yourself were going through some very serious health challenges, still thinking about your team, still thinking about your family and how they might feel and others around you. And showing up at work when, a lot of people there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, but a lot of people would have been like, right, I need to take a break from work.
Yeah.
It was like, no, I need to still show up and make sure that they're okay, and stay positive, and almost worried about the effect it's having on others before yourself. And I think that is, especially for people in leadership management roles, inspiring. Well, even people that aren't. Do you know what I mean? It's some, like you said, you've had a lot going on, but still having that thought of, how are these other people in my life? Going back to sort of the work side of things, I know you're somebody that, and again, this ties in with what you were just saying about the care and the people-focused side, but I know you're somebody that values partnerships with your clients and candidates over transactional, sort of that transactional approach. So what do you do, and how do you sort of maintain that positivity and really build that trust, that partnership with the clients you work with and with the candidates you support as well?
People always say, what's the USB? How do you do this? How do you do that? It's just being myself, but what I mean when I say being myself is my clients like me because I am upbeat, I'm positive, but I'm truthful. I'm not, I don't steer away from those ugly conversations. I will have those ugly conversations. But it's the way you deliver it. You don't, it's just about, we're all human beings at the end of the day. Let's have a conversation. And that's what I do with my clients. We just have conversations. I'm out there in the market. I see what's going on with the candidates, and I speak to my candidates the same. Let's talk. Let's get that information. And then I share that with my clients. My clients would say, I know hand on heart, they would say the reasons they work with me is, they like a bit of fun. They love to. Somebody answered the phone the other day, and I described a candidate, and I said, she's just a ray of sunshine. Honestly, I said, if I was hiring, I would have hired her on the spot. And he said, I know somebody else like that. I said, what do you mean? He said, I know somebody else that makes me feel so great every time I pick up the phone to her. And he was talking about me, and I was actually really touched by that. Really, really
lovely.
Yeah, but it's just be about truthful and honesty. And I think particularly where I'm not a star, I'm not somebody that's only done recruitment for a year and has got a manager telling me to do something this way or that way. I've learned my own way, and I stick to my own values and my own way of working. And if a client doesn't, sort of match those values, because again, it's how I work with my candidates. I wouldn't want to be sticking a candidate with a role that's going to be changing their life for 12 months for the worst, It's about accountability, and it's about those partnerships. So, I worked really hard for these, and I've got relationships that actually stem my 25 years. And I think that's because of the way that I've always been, is they don't know anywhere else.
Well, people wouldn't partner with you for that long if they didn't value your, the relationship. And I think there's, that authenticity that you apply. I think that's all people want. Clients and candidates don't want this fake persona that you think that you need to show. And I think sometimes people that are newer to recruitment feel like they've got to be this different person. But actually, your USP is just being yourself, because there isn't another you anywhere in the world, So use that thing that sets you apart and show your personality, because that, and like you say, if clients or candidates don't gel with you, then I always see it as, well, we're not right for each other, and it makes room for somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. But I grew up in recruitment, with managers that, crikey, you could not say that. You have to try and gel with everyone, and you have to be a chameleon to everyone. And don't get me wrong, there are elements of that in the position, particularly when you're listening to a conversation, you're reflecting, and you're not, quite sure in terms of your responses and things like that, but every business is not necessarily good business. So, it's working with those clients, and that's why I believe in a partnership more than transactional. So if a client comes to me and I'm like the 5th agency on the list, good luck with the other 4. Ring me when the other 4 haven't delivered, because I'm not interested in doing, rat race recruitment. I'm interested in doing right recruitment. So when I speak to my candidates, I've taken the time to get to know them. I've taken the time to ensure that I'm looking for the right position for them. And the flip side of the client, if I get vacancies, oftenly I don't even need to advertise my vacancies, because they'll be in my database. But, the client has given me a good, I would have known, I know them inside out. So I know exactly about culture, type of individual that will fit there, career growth and all of that. But as I say, if it's a list down the line, then I usually walk away from that type of business.
Yeah, no, with you on that one. I don't blame you. And I know you often emphasize the importance of that sort of mutual growth. So kind of I water you, you water me sort of mentality. How is that? That
is the quote that I use a lot.
Well, it's just like I knew that and I'm psychic, isn't it?
Did. And together we grow is how that ends.
How has that philosophy guided everything you do with work, your business?
I would say that is, it's all about relationship. And I'm not even talking clients and candidates. I'm actually talking about peers as well. I'm talking about colleagues that I've worked with, managers that I've worked with. And then obviously you've got your candidates and your clients as well, and sort of networking and things like that. I mean, it's been pivotal, to be honest, because the people that I'm surrounded by want to help me grow. But it's a two-way street. I also want to help them grow. So, if I was to use an example now, 3 of my clients are actually old managers of mine. So they know how I recruit. They know what it's like to work with me. They also know how they could tailor with me. So I've had previous managers now that have opened big doors for me in the workplace, in terms of recruiting, but we've got an understanding of how each other work. I've also had consultants that have gone into talent acquisition internal that come out to me to work with. And I think it's really important to nurture those relationships, because I've seen it where, if you leave an agency, it's almost like you're tarnished. That's it. Goodbye. Nobody's allowed to talk to you. But I've never believed in that. And I've always had my relationships with my old managers as well as colleagues and peers, and resulted in also candidates, that move into different roles that become decision makers, or clients that become my candidates, So I think that whole thing to me is all about support. And when I actually set up my agency, I was overwhelmed. I mean, I know that the year was going to be a tough year. Everybody was saying about the economy, we knew about the voting, all of this going on that was going to hit or certainly impact recruitment. But the amount of messages and the amount of support that I had from clients saying, when we will recruit, we will come back to you. Don't worry,
Yeah.
And I would say, the last couple of months, they've been true to their word, and it's all sort of coming back. So the outlook for next
year. It means the world, isn't it, when people give you that support?
Well, that's it, and it is about supporting. It's not about competing. And I find that with some other recruiters I work with as well. I partner with them because we're not seeing each other as competitors. We're seeing each other as an extension of each other to help each other. But we've got great experience between us.
Yeah, there's so much more, which I'm so happy to see. There's so much more collaboration now.
Yes.
Internally, with colleagues. Because I remember when I started, it was, very much your own desk, and you were very...
Oh, wow. Yeah, we used to have to run to the front door to go and see a candidate if they walked through, I used to, me and my colleagues used to trip each other up to see who could get there first, because...
Or answering the phone. It'd be like, that looks like a client number. Who can answer it first? It's not like... most agencies I go into anyway, it's not like that now, and it's lovely to see. And also the collaboration, as you said, between other agencies, whether that's locally or further afield. So yeah, I think it's brilliant and adds a lot of value as well, and helps your mindset. We're talking about a positive mindset here. When you haven't got that competing against each other and that sort of negativity around collaboration, your mindset will 100% be better. And if you're all supporting each other, you can all be more resilient together. So it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, it's trust, resilience, and you get to actually your mindset. Whereas particularly when you're sort of starting out in business, or you're working on your own in recruitment or anything like that, you get to a point of capacity, and whereas it's great, but it becomes stressful, and then your mindset can go into a different a different way. And there has to be a point where you say enough is enough. What is my capacity, and work that out. And then when you can, I've got recruiters from other agencies that cover my holidays that I actually get to go on holiday. I've got others that will literally, if I am at capacity, they're happy to take the work on, but there's that trust that's built there. But yeah, I mean, it means I can go on holiday and I can actually enjoy that time rather than worrying about what the desk is doing, worrying about what's going on with the business. And these are credible individuals that I do this with, but honestly, this last year since I've been in my business, I have probably, considering everything that's been thrown at me, am the least stressed that I've ever been.
What we talked a lot then about partnerships, building relationships. I am going to do a very cheeky Recruit CRM plug here, which relates to that. Because ultimately in recruitment, part of what helps us simplify challenges, what helps us sort of make our processes more efficient so we can focus more on building relationships, is recruitment tools, tech tools, whatever you want to call it. I'm speaking from experience with this. So for me, what allows me to focus more on building my relationships with my clients, with my candidates, is the fact that I can do things like automate follow-up. So for me, that's one thing that recruiters miss a lot, is they might start, if we talk about business development, for example, might initiate a conversation or some sort of contact, but then there's no follow-ups. And that's when a relationship and a partnership can't form. And that relates to candidates as well. So you can manage your candidates and clients by automating follow-ups. You can set tasks very easily to help you remember to do things. We were talking about internal collaboration. One of the things I love about it is, if I'm on LinkedIn and I'm using the Recruit CRM tool, where I can really easily add a candidate or client to the system, it will not only tell me if they're already on the database, but if, for example, a candidate is already registered by another colleague of mine, it will tell me, and I can go and collaborate with that colleague and speak to that colleague about that candidate. And potentially we can share that candidate, or we can put them with some of my clients. So there's loads of other things that ultimately for me reduce stress, help us focus on what really matters, which is meaningful connections, internally and externally. So if you want to book a free demo today, there should be a link for this in the description, but you can just visit recruitcrm.io and you can do it. I would highly recommend you do. I use it. It is the best CRM that I've used. So anyway, let's go back to the questions because we've got more to cover off. Okay. I know, obviously, you don't have a team at the moment, but when you did, because I know you did with your role before, how did you keep them motivated to maintain a positive environment? Because that's another job in itself, isn't it? Let alone what yourself,
Wow. Well, that one was always, again, positive mindset. So, I'm always upbeat. So, and I think that is in itself was absorbing from the team, because certainly not a mood hoover. If anything, I'm an energy person that comes in, and if anybody was already in a bit of a mood hoover mood, then they would be absorbing my positivity. But it was always about relationship connection, getting to know the teams, understanding their styles was probably one of my biggest things to keep them motivated. I would have there is never one size fits all. They've all got very, very different learning styles, very, very different training needs, very different coaching styles needed, and very different communication styles. So I would spend a lot of time with individuals getting to understand those styles and then adapting how I would work to get the best out of them. So it was never about getting the best out of me. I was always about getting the best out of them. So if I got the best out of them, then naturally it would be good for me. But it was always, I had so many different personality styles. I had some people that could, stare at a computer, for instance, and it was super organized in terms of, keeping their emails up to date and spending, about 10 minutes to an email, versus somebody that couldn't be bothered to do the emails, had about 1,000 in the inbox, but was always on the telephone because that's the way they communicated. You would also have compliance people, which would be very different. And I would love to do sort of different techniques in terms of their learning styles as well, and then adapt into that. But the overall aim was always to get them motivated, to get the very best out of them, so that they could see, they could achieve what they want to achieve. So again, going back to motivation was always, what do they want to achieve? why are they in this job? Right, so what do we need to do to get them to that goal? So whether it be a wedding, whether it be a new car, whether it be a holiday, whether it be going, putting in for a mortgage, whatever it was, it would be working to that. And even I'd have some people that didn't have those goals. Their goals were just to be the best at the job. Brilliant.
Yeah.
How are we going to do this? Because, again, people are different. Just because, when you go into recruitment, yes, don't get me wrong, I'd probably say about 70% of them say money motivates them, but it's what that money means to them, and it's what that money gives them and provides for them. And it's that, sort of hierarchy triangle, isn't it? Where are we?
Yeah.
So that's what I sort of work with the teams.
I'm so glad you highlighted that, because I am a big advocate of that approach, because I do a lot of, for anyone listening, I'm a DISC accredited trainer. Some of you might be familiar with that, but it's a behavioural profiling tool. And that's what I think a lot of agencies miss, and it's no fault of their own, it's just they're not aware of it. They've been managed one way, they copy that management style. But as you said, blanket approach doesn't work. Even if you've only got 3 people to manage, they're all different. Absolutely. And that approach gets the best out of them, and they feel more understood and valued. And that's all we ever really want, is what we want to feel heard and understood. Yeah. And when you've got those different people in that team, and you've highlighted some differences there, but that one size fits all approach, at least one person is going to be missing things that they need, and that's when you lose people. That's the ultimate negative endpoint. But it's not going to be it's going to be harder to maintain that motivation and positivity in the environment without adapting and tailoring your approach to all the members in the team. Then, what do you talked about? We had a tough market in 2024, but you mentioned there's been a number of tough markets you've experienced. And so what sort of advice would you give any recruiters listening around facing the tough markets? Because let's be honest, we're going to have it happen again. It's cycles, isn't it, in recruitment?
It really is. Believe in the process and believe in yourself. Don't panic and don't overthink things necessarily. We always have ups, we always have downs, but learn from it and understand when you're down, why are you down? Yeah. When you're up, why are you up? What did you do different? There's always something we can learn from. And I'd say keep learning and keep going, but make sure that, it is really trust and follow the process. So, I've always believed in that. And that's how I've, started my company now. And I've not gone a scattergun approach. I have gone into what made me successful as a consultant, and I have followed and trusted that process.
Yeah. And thinking about, I think that trusting the process, because sometimes when we're going through a tough market or a difficult time, and I suppose it was going to be my next question actually, was a piece of advice to help people stay resilient, but I very much find this would relate to life, isn't it really? Is where sometimes when we go through difficult things, because it doesn't feel nice, we feel like it's bad. But sometimes, as you said, it's trusting that whatever's happening to me is obviously meant to be happening for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. What can I take from this? What can I learn? And I always find when you get through it, you look back and you always see another sort of message from it, or you just end up growing. Like you said, you wouldn't have your agency now if something difficult hadn't have happened to take you there.
Yeah, absolutely. Life's a path at the end of the day. It is a path, and it's not, as much as we try to push it in the direction that we think that we want, it will throw spirals at you. It will throw different scenarios at you that take you down to another path. Now, I've recently done a little bit of looking back, and in terms of things of, for instance, if I was to use my personal life and the business, I was actually made redundant. Now, I was made redundant. I hadn't quite got through my health journey, and didn't know what to do at that point, because I thought, I'm not going to be hired. I'm unemployable. I've got all these appointments still to be going to. And, I had my sister unwell, my mother unwell, and thought, this is awful. But actually, I thought, no, this is great. I'm going to set up on my own, because by doing that, I'd always wanted to run my own agency again, but that gave me the kick that I needed to go and do it. And I had the self-belief to go and do it. Now, there have been other obstacles where I've had some operations that haven't been successful, or I've bounced back really quickly. And I believe I'm supposed to be on that journey, because if I wasn't, then the impact was I wouldn't be available to do the next thing that's impacted me. And then if that didn't go as it did, I wouldn't have been available to do the next. So I'm a true believer in the pathway is there, but you've got to learn and understand why it's actually happening that way. So, but don't necessarily put the walls up. Don't see it as a barrier to something. It's seeing it as okay, so this is an obstacle. How are we jumping this one? What can we do? And what are we learning about this? And that's everything from life to recruitment. So that's even saying, back to if you're a consultant that's not hitting target at the moment, looking back and thinking, right, what can I do? What's been my successes? This is a hurdle right now. And you've got your manager chipping in your ear, but it's that manager needs to work with you. You need to go back, see what has been the impact, and then look at developing from there.
Yeah. And I think that is a really lovely way to end the podcast today. Katrina, thank you so much for sharing with us all about your journey, your insights. I think your story is a powerful reminder to anybody listening that resilience and that positive mindset that we've talked about, it can really carry you through even some of the toughest challenges, and often help us come out the other side this bigger and better person as well. That growth, that learning that we've talked about. So for anybody listening, I would really encourage you to follow Katrina on LinkedIn, check out Recruitment Fox. If you're ready to streamline your recruitment process and you want to focus on building those meaningful connections we've made the focus of today's podcast, remember I said you can go on recruitcrm.io, you can explore the tools, get a free demo as well. If you want to connect with me, all my websites, my LinkedIn links, everything is in the description of the podcast as well. But thank you for tuning in to the Recruitment Podcast by Recruit CRM. Do not miss our next episode. I've got another great guest on. We're going to explore rack to rack, the good, the bad and the ugly with AJ Reid. So I will see you next time. Take care, everybody.
Bye.